Hello, my name is Jackie and this is Yoga 77. So welcome to yoga today. This is a short flow that can be taken at the beginning of your day. So it might be the morning when you're waking, and it's just a short flow that you might take before starting your day or heading off to work or whatever you're doing. And so just start by coming into your comfortable seat. You might be sitting cross-legged or legs in front, kneeling. And just come to a position where you find length through the spine, through the crown of your head. And you might roll the shoulders back, you might roll them forward. And just beginning to settle in and just observe your body. Noticing your breath. You might even take a big breath in through your nose and sigh it out through your mouth. And just taking another of those, breathing in and sighing it out. And then just come back to your regular breathing. And it might be breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. You might choose to close your eyes down, or you might prefer a soft gaze. Just take another 3 to 5 breath rounds just as you are. And then on your next inhale, just floating arms up above your head. And on your exhale, floating them down. And just take another 2 of these, inhaling as you rise and exhaling as you float down. You might invite a little pause at the top of your inhale before you exhale and bring the arms back down. And this time as we inhale, we're going to exhale, taking a little twist to your right. Inhaling up through center and then exhaling down to your left. And just take another one of these to each side. And then once you've taken your rounds, again just coming back through center. And then just take your gaze over to your right. And taking it back over to your left, just noticing how your neck feels, and take another one of those to each side. And then coming back through center. And then from here, we're going to come down into our tabletop position. And so just spreading your fingers wide and just making sure that the tops of the feet are somewhat grounded down into your mat and legs are about hip distance apart. And then just notice a light activation through the belly, a light drawing of belly button towards your spine. And the shoulders stacked somewhat above your wrists. And then just start to bring a light activation into your belly by drawing your hands back towards your thighs, thighs towards your hands, almost like you're trying to scrunch your mat together. So you're not actually moving the hands or the legs, just bringing a feeling of resistance as if you're drawing them together. Nice. And then as you're ready, just soften the belly. Allow the tailbone to lift and the belly lowers towards the ground, towards your mat. Gaze might come forward. And then reverse that action by doming the spine towards the ceiling. Gaze goes back towards your legs. Pressing down with the palms, the fingers. And again, just lowering the belly again. So this is our cow pose. Gaze comes forward. And you might even start to draw the shoulders back a little away from your ears. Again, exhaling, doming through your spine into your cat pose. Gaze coming back towards the legs. Again, on your inhale, lowering your belly, coming through into cow. And then let your exhale bring you through into cat. And then just move through this cat-cow flow at your own time. Just noticing how your spine is feeling for this morning practice or your wake-up practice. And then feel free to add any other movement to your cat-cow flow. So you might start to move out through the hips. You might circle. You might come side to side. You might even take your gaze over one shoulder and then the other. And just a little bit of freedom of movement here. So really just observing your spine, noticing any length that you can create through the side body. And just really just beginning to wake everything up. And then as you're ready, you might even start to draw forward a little, coming over your wrists. You might even just stay there a little bit, coming forward and back. And then drawing hips back towards your heels, coming towards child's pose. You might come just a little bit back to start with. Again, as you come through your cow, coming through maybe a little further across your wrists, doming the spine through cat, maybe drawing the hips a little bit further back. And so it's like you're lengthening through your cat-cow flow. You might come all the way down, heels, buttocks towards your heels, hips towards the heels. Or you might be up a little higher. You might start to come further forward. Just notice how your wrists feel. You might come further forward so that you even bring your feet off your mat, almost like you're coming into a cobra pose. So feel free to add on and extend as much as feels right on your body. And again, some mornings you might have more space, some days you might have less space, and just bring this time in to observe. Just notice, just almost like you're investigating how your body is feeling today, what's going on. Really nice. And then as you're ready, just a little pause in child's pose. And again, you might just take some gentle movement, even swaying side to side, almost like you're just bringing one hip down towards each heel. You might come into stillness. You might reach out a little bit more with your fingertips, starting to activate through the arms, through your shoulders. And then from here, it might be your inhale that draws you up to your tabletop. Tuck your toes under and then reach your hips towards the ceiling. And you can keep a generous bend through your knees. You can even bend and somewhat straighten, a little bit of movement. You might start to pedal out your dog or walk out your dog by drawing one heel down towards the ground, towards your mat. And as you're ready, it might be your exhale drawing forward, knees come down wide and come back into child's pose. And we'll just take another 2 or 3 of these as you inhale, drawing forward. Tuck your toes under, lifting hips, downward facing dog. Again, it might be your exhale, drawing forward, knees down wide, draw your hips back, child's pose. Maybe taking another of these, or feel free to stay in child's pose or even pause in downward facing dog. So have a little think where you'd like to pause. It might be your down dog, it might be child's pose. There's really a bit of freedom of movement here. You might still be working with movement, or you might be holding in your down dog or your child's pose. And just staying for another 2 to 3 breaths wherever you are. Again, observing the space that you're making through your body, observing your breath. And then if you're in child's pose, just come up to downward facing dog. And as you're ready, you're going to walk your hands back towards your feet, but sink your hips down so that you come into a squatting position. Bringing hands to heart center, and again, just creating that length through your spine. A little lift through the crown of the head. And then just placing your right hand down on your mat and lifting up with your left hand. You might take your gaze up to your top hand, or you might look down. Just notice how it feels through your neck. And take it to the other side as you're ready. Notice if you can keep an even weight through both feet. And then coming back through center, really nice. And then from here, just bringing your feet so they're somewhat parallel. Come into your forward fold, so lifting your hips. And then again, you might have a bend through your knees, through your legs. And you might allow your belly to come down to your thighs. Or you might not be down quite as far. You might have forearms on your legs. You might take some movement side to side. And again, bringing a slight bend and straightening into each leg. So just noticing that movement through the hips. Bring your light sway into this movement. You might have your hands down on the mat. You might be walking side to side. Really nice. And then as you're ready, just come into stillness. And then starting to roll up. Notice a light activation through your belly, drawing yourself up, starting to stack vertebrae. Shoulders roll down and back, and then lifting arms up high above your head. Finding length, and then just staying here, but taking a little reach to your right. Notice if you can keep an even weight through both feet. Might be your inhale coming back through center, and then just take it to your left. We'll take one more to each side. As you come back through center, bring hands back through heart center, and just come into your mountain pose Tadasana. Just a couple of breaths just to let that settle and just to come back to an observation of how you're feeling. And then we're going to come through a couple of flows coming through our chaturanga. And so on your inhale, lifting arms. And on your exhale, find your forward fold. It might be your inhale, lifting up to halfway lift. Hands might come above your knees or on your shins. And then place your hands down on your mat and walk to the top of the mat, watching out for any cats that might be in the way. Great positioning today, Orbit. And come to your high plank. An option to stay on your toes, and if you're staying on toes, pushing out through the heels of your feet, really activating here. You might come down onto your knees. And then lower down with control. And then roll your shoulders back, lifting your chest. Come into your cobra, maybe an up dog. And then coming over your toes, hips high, downward facing dog. And then from your downward facing dog, this time we're going to walk to the top of our mat and come into your forward fold. And as you're ready, rising up, really notice that lift, grounding down with the soles of the feet. And then lifting right to the fingertips. Again, just reaching to the right, taking it back through center, take it to the other side. Back through center, just bring hands through heart center, and we'll take that straight away into our second flow. So on your inhale, rising, exhaling, forward fold. Halfway lift, hands to shins or above your knees, flat back. And then placing your hands down, a step or a jump back to your high plank. Just a little bit of movement this time, so like you're just shifting forward and back a little over your wrists. Notice that activation of pushing out through the heels of your feet. And then starting to lower down with control, arms close into your body. You might come all the way down onto your belly. You might be hovering, lifting the chest, rolling shoulders down and back. Notice if you can push down a little with the tops of the feet. And you might take some little sideways glances here, looking over one shoulder and then the other. Again, just noticing that length through the side body, through your spine. And then arriving back to downward facing dog. And just stay here for another 2 to 3 breath rounds. You might start to lift your hips a little higher. You might start to draw your belly a little further back towards your thighs. Just checking in that your fingers are spread wide, and you might bring your hands a little wider on your mat, allowing a little bit more space for your shoulders. And then as you're ready, walking hands back towards your feet and sinking your hips down and back. Come into your chair pose, reaching out through the arms. If that doesn't work for your shoulders, just bring hands to heart center, roll the shoulders down and back. Notice a light drawing of belly button towards your spine, so it's a lift from the lower spine to the crown of the head. Check down that you can see your toes. If you can't see your toes, just bring the knees back a little so the feet is more into the heels of your feet. Really nice. 2 to 3 more breaths here. And then rising all the way up, floating arms up high, reaching to maybe a little baby back bend here, maybe looking towards the ceiling. And then hands through heart center. Inhaling as you rise. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, maybe on your inhale, looking for a flat back. Gazes straight down at your mat. And then placing your hands down and walking to the top of your mat, coming into your high plank. Again, it might be your exhale, lowering down through your chaturanga. Feel free to come into your baby cobra. Cobra may be an active upward facing dog, so pushing down with the tops of the feet, drawing the shoulders down and back and shining your chest forward. And then coming over the toes, downward facing dog, hips high. And again, just holding for 2 or 3 more breaths, noticing that energy through your body. Everything becoming a little bit stronger, a little bit longer for your morning practice or first practice of the day. And then from here, just drawing forward down onto your knees and bring your legs in front of you. And we're going to come down onto our backs. Remembering this is just a quick start of your day practice, and so we're going to find our constructive rest position, bringing arms by your side. Just noticing how the breath feels, how your body's feeling. And just bring your awareness to your spine, that little hollow between the spine and your mat, that natural curve through your spine. And then as you're ready, start to ground down with the soles of your feet. And then see if you can bring the spine down towards your mat as you begin to lift the buttocks off your mat, grounding down with the soles of the feet. And then it might be your exhale, lowering the spine back down. Notice the hips landing. And notice again maybe that little hollow between the spine and your mat. Again, see if you can minimize that little gap. Beginning to lift your buttocks off the mat, bringing hips towards the ceiling. Might come a little higher this time or not. And on your exhale, lowering back down. And so we're just going to work through these undulating bridges, taking another 2 or 3 of these. Feel free to begin to ground down a little bit more with the soles of your feet, lifting maybe a little higher. The invitation is to connect to your breath. Again, it might be an inhale as you rise, and this time you might keep flowing, or you might choose to hold at the top of your bridge. If there's space, you might come up a little higher by interlocking your fingers under your back or under your hips, and then walking your shoulders together, giving you a little bit more height. And then just starting to draw your chin slightly more back towards your chest. Ground out a little bit more with your feet, a little bit more activation through your legs, through your buttocks. And if it's feeling right, feel free to stay here for another 3 to 5 breath rounds. If you're still working with your undulating bridges, go for it. If you're ready to come down and have a little pause, always welcome. And then once you've completed your breath rounds, if you've interlocked fingers, just gently letting go, and then just allowing the spine to gently ripple back down to your mat, noticing how many vertebrae you can observe landing back down, almost a rippling motion. Allow the hips to come down, just let that settle. And it might feel right to bring one leg in towards your belly, maybe both legs. And just be gentle here, maybe a little rock side to side. Just observing how that all feels, maybe some movement through your hips by circling your knees one direction and then the other. Just noticing that space that you've created. And then as you're ready, bring your feet down to the mat, about hip distance apart again, and just let your knees fall to your right. You might bring your arms out to the side, and then your gaze might go out over your left shoulder. If it doesn't work with your head to the side, just keep your head up to center. And again, just staying here for another 2 to 3 breath rounds. And as you're ready, come back through center. Just take any adjustments here, wriggles and jiggles. And then let your knees just very gently come down to your left side. And your gaze might go out over your right shoulder, your right arm. And just noticing where you feel that spinal twist. If there's any pain, just ease off. You've come a little bit too far. Again, just finishing maybe another 2 breath rounds here. And then come back through center. Again, just feel free to take any final movements that feel right. Otherwise, just coming into your final resting position. You might bring your legs out wide. You might have the legs bent. Bring the arms out a little wider, palms shining up. Just letting that all go. And bring hands to your heart center. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, especially if this was your morning practice. Go well. And until next time, namaste.